Hey guys, Nick Andreessen here. I've been in the wealth management industry for over 19 years, and there's one common theme amongst the people I meet with. Whether they have $300,000 or $3 million, and it's a fear of running out of money in retirement. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Frank and Joanna Miller, who have $1.7 million in investments, and we're going to cover how much they can spend in retirement. Oftentimes, when people come in to meet with me, they'll often ask, can I retire? And the answer is always yes. But what they really want to know is, can I retire and maintain my current lifestyle or a lifestyle of my choosing? You see, if you have $300,000 and you don't spend any money, you can most likely retire. And if you have $10 million, but you spend $1 million every year, you probably can't retire if you want to keep up that pace. So, an important component of the planning process is really detailing out your goals and spending needs. Then we can determine if you have the assets and income to meet those goals. My goal with today's video is to give you a clear picture of what Frank and Joanna can spend, and importantly, to set up a framework that you can use in your situation to determine how much you can spend. Quick disclosure, Frank and Joanna are hypothetical, but their situation is very similar to clients we meet with every day. The first area we need to look at are some basic assumptions. We first need to know, one, what's your current age, two, when you plan to retire, and three, what is your life expectancy. These are self-explanatory, but it's really important to think hard about life expectancy. We use age 90 for a male and 95 for a female. Recent data is showing that if you're 65 years old, there is about a 50% chance both spouses will be alive at age 85. But there's also a 50% chance that one spouse will live to age 95. And in 75% of the cases, this is the female. As a result, we need to plan for longevity and retirement that could last 25, 30, 35 years. We also need to plan that the surviving spouse could be single for the last 5, 10, 15 years of their life. And what happens when you're a surviving spouse? Well, first, you lose the lower of the two Social Security benefits. Also, if you have a pension that doesn't have 100% survivor benefits, this could go away or be reduced. And the very painful dynamic as you move from the married filing jointly tax brackets to single tax brackets, which means your taxes could go up. Not to mention having to navigate old age alone. This final point may not seem like a major concern to some, but to a surviving spouse who may have relied on the deceased spouse for at least certain needs, this is a major emotional hurdle for people. I commonly speak with children of elderly people who say if mom dies first, dad's going to be lost, or vice versa. Now, these situations are unique to individual circumstances, so today we're going to focus on high level. And we're going to assume Joanna lives to age 95 and Frank lives to age 90. Here you can see with Frank being 2 years older, it means Joanna is single for the last 7 years of her projected life. The next area we need to look at is the net worth statement. Here you can see Frank and Joanna have an emergency fund of $25,000. They have a joint account valued just above $750,000, which is very helpful when considering tax strategies. Frank has a 401k and Joanna has a 403b. Remember, any distributions from a pre-tax 401k or 403b are fully taxable at your ordinary income rates. Joanna also has a Roth IRA, and all qualified distributions from Roth IRAs are tax-free. They have a home, a vacation home, and a mortgage. Just a quick note here, if their vacation home is in another state, their heirs could find themselves going to probate in both their home state and the state where the vacation home is located. There are strategies for this, but that'll be in another video. In total, their investment assets are approximately $1.7 million, and their total net worth, including equity in their homes, is $2.8 million. Then we have to start looking at cash flow, both income and expenses. We start with income. Here we show Frank and Joanna are still working for a couple years, so we detail their salaries. Importantly, we document Frank and Joanna's Social Security income. We also start with their full retirement age amounts, and then adjust up or down depending on their individual circumstance. Here, both their full retirement ages are age 67, which also means if they're going to retire or planning to retire at 65 as planned, we're going to have a gap of 2 years where we need to find other buckets to pull the retirement income from, or start one of their Social Security benefits early. We also show here that Joanna has a pension of $12,000. So what did we notice already? Well, without even dipping into their investments, beginning at age 67, if we add Frank and Joanna's Social Security and pension, they have income of just over $65,000. Now, this might not feel or meet all their spending needs in retirement, but it helps alleviate some of the initial fear of running out of money in retirement. In worst case scenario, they'll be able to spend a little under $5,000 per month if you take out some money for taxes. And because Social Security has an annual cost of living adjustment, it should do pretty well at keeping up with inflation. But Frank and Joanna have plans for traveling and golf memberships and giving and gifting. So let's keep moving forward to see how much they can safely spend when we combine this income with safe withdrawal amounts from their investment accounts. When we look at expenses, we like to break out living expenses, health expenses, and mortgage, along with other liabilities. I also like to break out things like travel because, in my experience, if we have that specifically detailed in a plan, people feel more comfortable spending it. But today we're going to simplify. So let's assume as a starting point that Frank and Joanna want to spend $10,000 per month or $120,000 per year, over and above the $23,000 they're paying on their mortgage each year, for an approximate total annual spending of $143,000 or just under $12,000 per month. This amount includes healthcare costs, travel expenses, charitable goals, and lifestyle spending. Again, we're simplifying for the purposes of this video. Now remember, we have $65,000 of income from Social Security in Joanna's pension. So the difference we need to make up is $78,000. And considering our investment accounts are $1.7 million, that's a distribution of 4.6%, ignoring taxes. But we can't ignore taxes because remember, if we have a $1 million in a pre-tax account and are in the 22% ordinary tax bracket, we don't have $1 million to spend. We have $780,000 of after-tax dollars and $220,000 of embedded tax liability. If we make it the back of the napkin assumption, we stay in the 22% tax bracket. So after tax, our withdrawal rate is closer to 5%. Now, safe withdrawal rates are generally in the 4 to 5% range based on various studies, and we're pushing past the upper bound. So this tells me right away that we can't just invest in an allocation that's pretty good. We need to be intentional and purposeful about each of the holdings in the investment strategy. Again, not something we'll cover here, but it's a reality of Frank and Joanna's situation. So before we get into the plan projections, let's talk about a few other assumptions. Number one, we assume that Social Security benefits have a cost of living adjustment in alignment with long-term inflation assumptions of 2.5%. Number two, we assume expenses continue to rise with inflation of 2.5%. And number three, we assume that Frank and Joanna are invested in a balanced strategy that earns 6.87% per year, which is in alignment with long-term returns for a 60% stock and 40% bond portfolio historically. Here we have our plan projected out. We can see where Frank and Joanna are today. We can see their sunset symbols that represent retirement, and we project this over both Frank and Joanna's lifetimes. And at the end of Joanna's life, she has not only met her current lifestyle needs, but their wealth has grown to over $4 million. It's also important to consider inflation, right? Just like cars and housing prices 20 years ago were a fraction of what they are today, the same dynamic will play out in the future. So we take a quick look at inflation adjusted wealth. This is what their wealth will feel like in the future, actual buying power. As a result, we can feel confident in saying that Frank and Joanna can maintain their lifestyle spending of $12,000 per month. There is a little wiggle room here to increase spending a little more in the current scenario, but can we do better? Let's look at some planning ideas that can help us feel comfortable spending more. The first is, if you recall, both Frank and Joanna are slated to take their Social Security benefits at their full retirement ages of age 67. If instead Frank delays his Social Security benefit to age 70, there is additional value earned over the projected life of the plan. Another option is converting IRA dollars to Roth. When we do this, we pay taxes now when we're in presumably a lower tax bracket in an attempt to minimize the amount of taxes or tax rate we have to pay in the future when required minimum distributions begin. By doing this, you can see we pay considerably less in projected taxes over Frank and Joanna's lifetime. Our goal with Frank and Joanna is to pay as much taxes as we can when they're in that 15% tax bracket to minimize the amount that they'll have to pay when required minimum distributions begin. Because when they begin, Frank and Joanna are projected to be in the 25% tax bracket, a difference of 10%. One caveat here is, if you recall, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act reduced tax rates for many Americans. This tax structure is sunsetting at the end of 2025. As a result, the 12% bracket is expected to be eliminated and revert back to the 15% bracket. The 22% bracket is expected to be eliminated and revert back to the 25%, and so forth. Now, it's not one-for-one exact switch, so check with your financial professionals or tax advisor to see how this affects you. The income's a little bit different. Just these two strategies, we can feel confident in Frank and Joanna increasing their spending by an additional $10,000 annually. Now, this is the real power of being tax efficient with your retirement planning. By implementing these two strategies for Frank and Joanna, they can maintain their spending and add a trip to Maui every year, or that golf membership, paid for with being tax smart. So there you have it. Frank and Joanna with $1.7 million can safely spend between $145,000 to $150,000 per year because their income, their investment accounts, and their plan assumptions allow for it. But it really is dependent on your individual circumstances. And by them implementing a couple strategies into the mix, they can increase their spending by an additional $10,000 per year. So here's my question for you. What's your Maui? Is it buying a home, spending winters in a warmer climate, taking the Great American Road Trip, or volunteering? Start your planning with the end in mind, then work backwards. This is how you design a retirement that serves you, that helps you live a meaningful retirement. If you want to talk to someone to understand what you should do, how much you can spend, if you can retire confidently, there is a link below to schedule time with our office directly. If you like this video, please hit the like button. And if you want future videos about financial planning, tax strategies, estate planning, retirement income, or investments, please subscribe to our channel. In the meantime, I wish you the best on your retirement journey.